In the mid-1980s, rock and roll was lost in a fog of hairspray. The charts were dominated by glam metal bands in neon spandex, with polished, radio-friendly sounds and a style that often overshadowed the substance. The rebellion felt manufactured, the danger was gone, and rock was becoming safe. Then, crawling out of the gutters and dive bars of the Sunset Strip, 5 men came together to form a band that would not just challenge the status quo, but douse it in gasoline and light a match. They were Guns N' Roses, and they didn't just change the music, they reminded the world what rock and roll was supposed to be. This is the complete story of how they burned it all down and rebuilt it in their own image. To find additional stories and untold timelines of the biggest bands, legends, and cultural icons, don't forget to subscribe to Timelines Unlocked, your front row seat to music history. The genesis of Guns N' Roses began in 1985, a volatile fusion of 2 rival Los Angeles bands, Hollywood Rose, featuring vocalist Axl Rose and rhythm guitarist Izzy Stradlin, and LA Guns, which included lead guitarist Tracy Guns. After a few lineup shuffles, the classic world-changing roster was cemented. Axl Rose, a charismatic and explosive frontman with a multi-octave scream, Slash, a blues-drenched guitar god in a top hat, Izzy Stradlin, the quiet punk rock soul of the band, Duff McKagan, a bassist with a punk attitude and a rock star swagger, and Steven Adler, whose drumming provided a loose, powerful groove. They lived together in a filthy apartment they called the Hell House, surviving on next to nothing, channeling the chaos, poverty, and raw energy of their lives directly into their music. They didn't look like the other bands on the strip. They looked like a street gang, and their sound was an unfiltered blend of punk's aggression, the bluesy heart of classic rock, and the heavy metal power that was ruling the era. After honing their sound in the sweaty clubs of LA and signing with Geffen Records, they released their debut album in 1987, Appetite for Destruction. The industry didn't know what to do with it. MTV initially refused to play the video for Welcome to the Jungle, deeming it too violent and unsettling. The album languished for nearly a year, but the band's relentless touring built a word-of-mouth buzz that could not be ignored. A late-night spin of the video on MTV finally broke the dam, and the floodgates opened. Appetite for Destruction became a cultural phenomenon, eventually selling over 30 million copies worldwide, and becoming the best-selling debut album of all time in the United States. It wasn't just a record, it was a statement. Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, and Sweet Child of Mine weren't just songs, they were visceral anthems for a generation tired of pop metal fantasy. Slash's opening riff for Sweet Child of Mine, which started as a simple string-skipping exercise, became one of the most iconic guitar licks in history, propelling the song to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. What made Guns N' Roses truly revolutionary was not just their sound, but their absolute commitment to authenticity, no matter how ugly it got. They brought genuine, unscripted danger back to the forefront of rock. At a time when concerts were highly choreographed productions, a GNR show was a powder keg waiting for a spark. Axl Rose was a notoriously volatile and unpredictable frontman, known for starting shows late, walking off stage, or launching into angry tirades against security, the press, or even his own bandmates. You never knew what you were going to get, which made every performance a must-see event. Their personal lives were a public spectacle of drug abuse, alcoholism, and violent confrontations. They didn't just sing about a life of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They were living it to its most destructive extremes. The line between art and reality was completely blurred, and that raw, chaotic energy was precisely what the world was craving. Their image became as legendary as their music. Slash, with his towering top hat, curtain of curly hair obscuring his face, and a cigarette perpetually dangling from his lips, became the epitome of the effortlessly cool guitar hero. Axl, in his bandana, leather pants, and kilt, was a mesmerizing and often terrifying force of nature on stage. Duff brought the punk rock ethos, while Izzy remained the stoic, mysterious core. They resurrected the archetype of the rock star as a romantic outlaw, a dangerous figure on the fringes of society, rather than a preening, camera-friendly celebrity. They made being in a band look less like a job and more like joining a legendary dysfunctional family of pirates. In 1988, they released GNR Lies, a half-acoustic, half-live EP that showcased their versatility but also courted immense controversy, particularly with the song One in a Million, which contained racist and homophobic slurs. The band defended the track as a raw reflection of Axl's mindset as a newcomer to a diverse and intimidating city, but the backlash was significant. Yet, true to form, Guns N' Roses never apologized. They thrived on controversy, using it to reinforce their image as a band that refused to compromise or censor themselves for anyone. This defiant attitude culminated in their most ambitious project yet. In September 1991, they did the unthinkable and released 2 separate double albums on the same day. Use Your Illusion I and Use Your Illusion II. It was an act of supreme rock and roll hubris, and it paid off, with the albums debuting at number 2 and number 1 on the charts, respectively. The Illusion albums were a massive artistic leap forward. They moved beyond the street-level grit of Appetite into epic, sprawling territory. Songs like November Rain, a 9-minute power ballad complete with a full orchestra and a multi-million-dollar music video, became cinematic events. Tracks like Civil War and Estranged were complex, multi-part sagas that showcased a new level of musical maturity and ambition. They proved that a hard rock band could be both brutally heavy on songs like You Could Be Mine and beautifully ornate, blending piano, strings, and complex arrangements without losing their core identity. They were now the biggest band in the world, selling out stadiums on a colossal 2.5-year world tour. However, the machine was starting to break down from the inside. The band's drug use had spiraled out of control, leading to the firing of drummer Steven Adler in 1990, who was replaced by the more technically proficient Matt Sorum. The creative and personal friction between the two titanic egos of Axl Rose and Slash was reaching a breaking point. Izzy Stradlin, the band's quiet anchor and a key songwriter, grew tired of the chaos and quit in 1991. The tour became infamous for riots, cancellations, and Axl's onstage meltdowns, most notably the 1991 incident in St. Louis, where Axl dove into the crowd to attack a fan, sparking a riot that caused millions in damages. The very danger that made them famous was now threatening to tear them apart. The most profound impact of Guns N' Roses was how they served as a bridge between 2 distinct eras of rock. Their raw, blues-based, and brutally honest music was the final nail in the coffin for the superficial glam metal scene. They made hair bands look obsolete overnight. At the same time, by proving there was a massive mainstream audience for authentic, gritty, and angst-ridden rock, they kicked down the door for the alternative and grunge revolution that was brewing in Seattle. Without Guns N' Roses reintroducing danger and street-level reality to the charts, it's arguable whether bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden would have found such a clear path to mainstream success. GNR tilled the soil, and grunge planted the seeds of the 90s. By the mid-1990s, the classic lineup had completely disintegrated. Slash, Duff McKagan, and Matt Sorum all departed, leaving Axl Rose as the sole remaining original member, holding the rights to the band's name. What followed was a long, strange period of silence and myth-making. Fans waited for over a decade for a new album, a project that became the stuff of legend, Chinese Democracy. it was finally released in 2008 to a mix of curiosity and lukewarm reviews. The album was a complex, industrial-tinged work that bore little resemblance to the band's classic sound. For many, Guns N' Roses was a memory, a moment in time that could never be recaptured. Then, in 2016, the impossible happened. Axl, Slash, and Duff McKagan buried decades of animosity and reunited for the Not in This Lifetime tour. What started as a handful of shows became one of the highest-grossing concert tours of all time, playing to sold-out stadiums across the globe for years. The tour wasn't just a nostalgia act. It was a testament to the timeless power of their music. Old fans brought their children, proving that the rebellious energy of Appetite for Destruction and the epic scope of the Illusion albums still resonated deeply across generations. Guns N' Roses changed music forever by giving rock and roll its soul back. They dismantled the polished facade of 80s rock and replaced it with something raw, unpredictable, and real. They were brilliant, infuriating, self-destructive, and unapologetically loud. They reminded a generation that the best rock and roll shouldn't feel safe. It should feel like it could fall apart at any second. Their music is the soundtrack to rebellion, a timeless roar that continues to inspire anyone who wants to turn up the volume and walk on the wild side. Now it's your turn. What's the greatest Guns N' Roses track of all time? Is it the menacing swagger of Welcome to the Jungle, the heartbreaking epic of November Rain, or the pure rock perfection of Sweet Child O' Mine? Drop your answer in the comments. Hit that like button if you believe Guns N' Roses saved rock, and don't forget to subscribe to Timelines Unlocked for more epic journeys through music's most game-changing moments.